Hello everyone, welcome back to another session of Asynchronous Apex. So in this one, we are going to talk about batch Apex. So in the previous sessions, we covered future methods and queuable Apex. So the third asynchronous process that we have in Salesforce is batch Apex. Okay. So in the last session, the problem that we had in the queuable was that neither future or nor queuable Apex process can actually process millions of records. So if you have millions of records to process, if you have to make any kind of update, deletion, or anything, then you have to actually go for batch Apex. Okay. So because the governor limits in Salesforce, in a single transaction, you'll only be able to process 10,000 records, not more than 10,000 records. All right. So that is the reason that if you have such a requirement where you want to process more than 10,000 records in a single transaction, then you would have to write a batch Apex class. All right. So let's just go ahead and see that what and all do we have. So let's just have a look at the agenda for this session. So we are going to talk about what is batch Apex, then what is the syntax for batch Apex, and then how to call batch Apex, and what about batch size, what is the maximum, what is the minimum, and what is the default batch size. And then we'll also talk about what are the benefits of batch Apex over future methods and queuable Apex. Okay. And then we'll also talk about job chaining in batch Apex. Okay. Job chaining was possible in queuable Apex, but it was not possible in future methods. So we'll also check if it is possible in batch Apex or not. And if it is, then how it can be done. All right. So batch Apex is also a asynchronous process. Again, I'm just briefing you again what a asynchronous process is. If you remember if you have watched my previous session, it's fine. If you have not, then you can go back to the future method session and you will have a brief or like a detailed explanation of what a asynchronous process is. So in that particular video, I have taken an example of few tasks. So I'll just quickly explain. So there were few tasks. For example, let's say if I have 3 tasks for the day. I have to take a shower, I have to get ready, and then I have to go to a wedding. So these are like synchronous processes, right? That I have to take a shower and then only I can get ready, and then only I will be able to go to the wedding. So these are the sequential tasks that I know that it has to be done in sequence, a synchronous process. But let's say if there is one more activity that I have to do in the before going to the wedding, I have to go to a laundry shop and drop the clothes over there. Okay. So in order to now, if you actually observe all the tasks starting from the first one, taking a shower, so that means my presence is required because I'm the one who wants to take a shower, right? So my presence is required. The second one was to get ready. So again, my interaction is required because I have to get ready, right? And then the last task was to go to the wedding, right? So the invitation is for me, so of course I will go to the wedding, right? But then the another extra task that came into picture to actually go to the laundry shop and give clothes, there my presence is not required. The only thing that I have to do is I have to go and drop the clothes to the laundry shop, right? So I don't actually have to go there and wait over there and wait for the laundry guy to complete the laundry and then give the clothes back to me. So what I can do, rather than standing there and waiting there, I can save some time. So what I will do, I'll take the shower, I'll get ready, and then I'll go to the laundry shop to drop the clothes, and then I will go to the wedding. And meanwhile, I'll be attending the wedding. By the time I finish and come back, I can go to the laundry shop and collect the clothes, right? So these kind of tasks where user interaction is not required, right? For example, in laundry shop, my interaction was not required, user interaction was not required, right? So in any such task, you can actually write that kind of task in a asynchronous process, so that anything else is not blocked. Because for any kind of process where the dependency is not on any of the other tasks, then you can actually push those kind of tasks or processes into asynchronous process, right? So this series has been about the asynchronous process. The first one was future methods, that is available in Salesforce. The second was queuable Apex. Now this is the third one, which is batch Apex. All right. So if you want more clarity on other two processes, you can go back to the videos and watch it. But right now we are going ahead with the batch Apex. So batch Apex is also a synchronous process. So basically in Salesforce, governor limits only allow 10,000 records to be processed in a single transaction. More than 10,000 records, you will not be able to process in a single transaction. All right. So the solution is batch Apex, because batch Apex can process up to 50 million records in the background in a single transaction. But in a single transaction, it's not that it is trying to process everything at once, right? But like it does process in at once, but in batches, in small batches. Okay, and that batch size is something that you can actually decide. So for example, let's say I have to process total 80,000 records, and I want to process these records in batches of 2,000. So I want to write a batch Apex class, and I want to, like, when I am executing that batch Apex class, I want to tell the class that although I have total 80,000 records, but I want the batch class to pick 2,000 records at once. Okay, so 2,000, 2,000, 2,000. So that will, like, 80,000 divided by 2,000, that means total 40 batches. So that means the batch class, the execution of the batch class is going to be 40 times. And I'm going to exactly tell you that what part of the batch class is actually going to rerun 40 times, right? For the, like, remaining records. So in the first batch, it is going to take 2,000 records. Then in the second batch, again 2,000 records. Second batch, again 2,000 records. So in this particular case, it has to run for 40 times in order to complete the 80,000 records. Okay. So I hope you got this idea. So it's pretty simple, right? So let's say if I don't want to run the batches, I don't want to run the batch Apex in the batch of 2,000 records. This is something that I can decide my own, right? So if, let's say, if I decide that, let's say in the batch of 500, then I would be dividing 80,000 by 500, and whatever the calculation I get, that many batches it is going to create, and that many times it is going to execute the batch Apex class. Okay, so and that's the funda behind it. Now this is the syntax of the batch Apex class. So again, in when we were going through queuable Apex, if you remember, we had implemented an interface called queuable. In batch Apex class, we are going to implement an interface called database.batchable. And again, if you remember that in queuable Apex, we had only one method, execute method. And in case of interface, whatever methods are available in interface, you have to implement those methods in your class, right? If you're implementing that interface, then you also have to implement all the methods that are available in the interface. So the same logic goes with this particular interface as well, right? And this interface has three methods: start, execute, and finish. Okay, in queuable Apex, we had only one method, right, in the queuable interface, that was execute. But in database.batchable, we have three methods: start, execute, and finish. And all these three methods are categorized based on the kind of work that they would be doing. So for example, in the start method, basically whatever code you would be writing, you have to just collect the records, right? For example, let's say if I take the same example that I have to process 80,000 records, let's say I have 80,000 accounts in my system. Okay, and I want to update the account names of all the 80,000 account, right? So what will I do? The first thing is that I need to query all those 80,000 accounts, right? So start method is something where you have to gather all the records, collect all the records. That means query all the records from the system. Okay, once you have all the records, you will be passing that record into the execute method, and then you will be writing whatever the logic you want. So in my case, if I want to update the account names of all the 80,000 records, so here I have collected all those 80,000 accounts, and here I would be writing the logic to update the account names. Okay, and then the third method is finish method. So finish method is something that once your execution is done, right, if there is any post processing logic, for example, let's say once the execution is done, you want to send an email to the user that the process has completed or any such thing, right, then you can do that in the finish method. Okay, now let's just go by each method here and take the same example that what I would be doing. Okay, so here, as I said, that let's say there are 80,000 accounts. All right, so the first thing that I would be doing is I am going to write a query here. Okay, so there's one more thing that you have to keep in mind, that normal SQL query that you write, correct, that select ID from account or whatever, and then you collect that in the list of account. So you cannot use that kind of SQL here, because that kind of SQL can only return you records till 50,000. So if your records are more than 50,000, then your query is not going to return you all the records. It is only going to return you 50,000 records, right? But how many do you want? You want all the 80,000 account records, right? So we have something called query locator, okay, in batch Apex. So don't worry, when I'm going to do the example, I'll show you how you can actually make use of query locator and actually fetch all the records. Okay, So don't worry about that. I'm going to tell you that. And then once you have all the account records in the execute method, I would be receiving that list of account records, whatever I have gotten. And here I will be running a loop on all that account and I would be updating the name. And that's it. That's all about it. And then once I am I have finished writing the start and execute method in post processing logic, let's say I am not going to write anything in the post processing logic, but if you want, you can read more about it and see that how you can actually send emails, or in Salesforce there are some inbuilt classes that you can actually use to send out the emails, or any other post processing logic that you want, that also you can include over here. For example, let's say if you want to call another batch class from this class, that also you can do in the finish method. Don't worry about that. We are going to cover that in the job chaining, in the last part of the session. All right. So for now, just remember these four things. The first thing is that you have to when you're writing a batch class, you have to implement database.batchable interface. That's one thing. The second point is that this particular interface has three methods: start, execute, and finish. Okay. And another point, even though if you have nothing to write inside the finish method, you still have to define the method and you have to keep it blank. Otherwise, because the interface, otherwise you'll not be able to save your batch class. It will keep on saying that you have not implemented the method, finish method. Okay. So even though if you don't have any logic in the finish method, you still have to include the finish method and keep it blank. Okay. You can only write your logic in the start, and your business logic, or updation logic or deletion or whatever it is in the execute method. All right. So these three methods are required in order to complete your batch apex class. Okay, now let's say once you have your batch apex class, how you can call your batch apex class. This is the syntax for calling the batch apex class: database.execute batch new, and then the class name, and here you are going to define the batch size. Okay, so before going ahead and actually discussing all of these things, let's just go ahead and do an example. I think that will be easier to understand the batch size. So let me go ahead and write a batch class. So file apex class. All right. So what is the first step? The first step is implements, database dot batchable. Okay. And here you have to pass a subject. Okay. So this is the first thing. Now there are three methods, right? What are the three methods? Start, execute, and then finish. Okay. So in finish, I'm not going to write anything, but let me start with start. So I'm going to do the same requirement. I'm assuming that I have 80,000 accounts, and then I have to update the name of all the 80,000 accounts. Okay, I will append some string on the account names. All right. So the first thing is, so there's the method structure will be something like this. So public database dot query locator. I'm using query locator because I told you, right, that if you're not using query locator, then your SQL query is not going to be able to return you all the 80,000 records, right? It is only going to return you till 50,000 records. Okay, like out of 80,000, only 50,000. Okay, so start, and then here you have to pass database dot database dot batchable context. Okay, this, and then okay. So now here I have to return, there's a method called, in the database class, there's a method called get query locator. Okay, get query locator, and here I am just going to, hold on, I want to query all the account records, right? So I'm going to select ID from account. Okay, this is how you will be writing a query inside the string, and you have to, because this query locator, this is the format that how it accepts the query. Okay, so I have the query now, and then in the execute method I have to execute method public void execute, and then database dot batchable context. Okay, and here, so here I can just do this as object and then lst accounts. So here, if I'm writing s object, then I would have to typecast it inside the method, right? So I can rather, because I know that the query result that I'm getting is like, of account. So list of accounts. So I can simply write list of account here, all right? Rather than like writing list of s object and then like, typecasting it. Okay, so here I have all the accounts, right? That's one thing, correct? And then here, what I'm going to, I have passed all the list of accounts that I have. And here I have to run a loop over this list of account and update the account names. Okay, so for, and what is the list? This is the list, right? So this is the list. And then here acc dot name, I want to append something to the name. Okay, updated by batch, something like this. Okay, and I put a hyphen space, and here sorry, I want to append that to all the account names. Okay, acc dot name. So every time the loop will run, what it will do. So first of all, let's say this query returned you 80,000 account records. Okay, now, and let's say I have decided the batch size to be 2,000. So what will happen? So if I go back to the presentation, so what's gonna happen? It is actually, okay, so I had 80,000 accounts and I have given the batch size as 2,000. I will let you know that how, I will tell you that how to give the batch size. For now, just assume that I have given the batch size to be 2,000. Okay, so if there are 80,000 accounts and I have given the 2,000 as the batch size, that means total 40 batches would be formed. Okay, that means these 80,000 accounts, this execute method is going to run 40, like, 40 times. Okay, so that means that every time, so 40 times, so let's say, like, divided by 2,000. Okay, so that means in the first batch 2,000 records are going to get picked up. Okay, so for those 2,000 record, this loop will run. Okay, and it will update the names. And then what will happen, the next batch will get picked again, 2,000 records will be processed, then again 2,000 records will be picked and those will be processed, again 2,000 records will be picked and those will be processed. Okay, so that means this execute method is actually going to run for 40 times the number of batches that you have. Okay, so because it already had 80,000 records, it has returned, like, the query has returned me 80,000 records. And from the batch size that I would be giving, the, like, the account records are going to get, like, splitted up as per the batch size. So I had given 2,000, so it is going to be splitted for 40 batches. Okay, so those 40 batches, each batch is going to pick 2,000 records because I had given the size as 2,000. Okay, so that is how, like, in every batch, like, so in batch number 1, 2,000 record will be picked and it will, like, enter the 2,000 records. The loop will like, run on 2,000 record. It will update the name to, like, for everyone, like first, second, third till 2,000. Then what will happen, the moment 2,000 is finished, the second batch of 2,000 will be picked. Okay, that is nothing but the batch number 2, batch number 3, batch number 4. So every batch is going to pick 2,000 records and execute method is going to run for 40 times. That is that way. Okay, so that is the, so out of all these methods, execute method is the one that is actually running as many times as the number of your batch, like, has turned out to be as per the, like, given batch size, whatever the batch size you have given. Okay, so here I have, like, updated the name, and now I can simply, I have to write this statement, right? Otherwise the update will not happen. So I have to just update the list and that's it. I believe this has to be global because you would be executing it from the outside. All right. Second, let me check this. Actually, no, this is fine. Public is fine. Okay, finish method. Okay, we need to give this, right? Public void. Public void finish and then database dot batchable context, and that's it. Because the method structure you have to define, right? The way it has been defined in the interface. So just like writing finish was not enough. Okay, so the batch is ready. Here you will get the 80,000 records, and there will be 40 batches formed, and every time for all the batches 2,000 records will be picked and the names will be updated, and that way this execute method is going to run 40 times. Okay, so this is done. Now let's just go ahead and check how to execute the batch. Okay, so this is the syntax for executing the batch. Database.execute batch, then new, and then the batch class name, and then you have to give the size. Okay, so let me just copy the batch name and let me show you. So this is my execute anonymous. I opened it with Windows E, but I will show you from here. Okay, so here you have to give database dot execute batch. Okay, and here new, this is the class name, and then here you have to give the size. So for now I'm giving it at 2000. Okay, so there are other three things that I want to let you know before we proceed. So here the batch size. Okay, so the maximum batch size that you can actually provide is 2000. You cannot provide a batch size more than 2000. I cannot give 2001 or something like that. Anything more than 2000 is not acceptable when you're actually executing the batch. All right, that's one thing. Minimum batch size is 1. Default batch size is 100. Okay, so for example, so the second thing, minimum batch size is 1. That means I cannot do this. I mean, I shouldn't be doing this. 0. No. Minimum batch size you have to give as 1. But this doesn't make sense, right? If you're giving minimum batch size as 1, that means you're actually creating a batch of one record. That means 80,000, right? So doesn't make a sense. Then there was no need of right? Because this batch is going to run 80,000 times, and which is I mean, you can do better, right? I mean, if there's a limit available, then why would you give a batch size of 1, right? So you can give either the maximum batch size, and if you, let's say, if you don't give a batch size, then it by default it picks up a batch size of 200. So let's say if I decide not to give a batch size, then by default it is going to take the batch size of 200, and what it will do then? It is going to divide your 80,000 by 200. Okay, so there will be 400 batches formed. All right, so that is how the batch size works. So these three things: maximum is 2000, minimum is 1, and default, if you're not giving anything, then it is going to take 200. All right, so I'm just going to give it as 2000. Sorry, 2000, and let's just execute this. Although I don't have 80,000 accounts in my org, but this is just to consider that, and then use the query locator is the best way to at least practice this. So I think the batch has executed. It has executed. So hold on. Okay, the name was, no, the batch did not get executed because, see, I'm updating the name, right? But I have not queried the name here. So that is what it is saying, that you have not queried the name, the one that you're trying to update. So you have to query the name as well. Okay, so saved, and let me try to run it again. So execute. Okay. All right. This time it was executed. So if you see in the previous one, it was giving me this error that S object row was retrieved without querying. I mean, you're not seeing here, but I know that. See, Sokol without querying the requested field account.name, right? Because I am updating account.name here from the list, right? And that in that list, I had not queried the name field, right? That is what it was saying me, that you have not queried the name field and you're trying to use it, you're trying to update it, right? So now it is updated. We can, if I go back to my org and if I check all the accounts, okay, then all the account names should have been updated. Here, see, updated batch, updated by batch, hyphen. So all the accounts, whatever I had, got updated by batch. What I did in the batch, I have appended this in all the account names, right? This is the update that I was doing, correct? So that is what happened. All right. So this is the most basic way of writing a batch. Again, quickly going through, you have to implement database.batchable. You have to write 3 methods: start, execute, and finish. Okay, even though you're not writing anything in the finish, you still have to define it with the whole method structure. And then in the start method, you have to collect all the records, query all the records. in your execute method, you are going to write the logic, whatever you want to do with those records. Okay. And in the finish method, of course, like, post processing logic, if you have anything. And this is the way that you will be executing the batch. Database.execute batch, new, then batch class name, and then you can give the size. The maximum size that you can give is 2000, minimum is 1. And if you don't give any size, then by default, it is going to take 200 as the size. All right. Okay, yeah, let's just go ahead and check what else. Okay, so yeah, so benefit of batch apex over future method and queuable, right? So future method and queuable still follow the standard Salesforce limits, right? So they cannot process more than 10,000 records in a single transaction, right, at once. But batch apex can do, right? So batch apex allows you to process 50 million records to process in the background at once, because it in self, internally it divides the splits up the records and execute them in batches. But although that is considered as a single transaction, right? And then of course it is best for long running processes. And what else do we have? So does batch apex allow chaining of jobs? So yes, it does. Okay, so in future methods, the chaining of jobs are not allowed, right? So from a future method, you cannot call another future method. Okay, but in queuable apex, it was allowed, right? So from one queuable apex class, you can call another queuable apex class, right? So that way you can do chaining, and you can also do the sequencing, right, which will be running first. So the job chaining can also be done in batch apex. This is my class 1, and this is my class 2, right? This is here after I have start method, execute method, finish method, and then I have database dot execute batch. Okay, and then I have execute batch class 2. So I have another class where I have implemented something in the same way. It is another batch class. The only thing that I'm doing is that once this batch is completed, right, because it's this batch is not going to check the finish method until and unless it process all the records. If I take the same example, then it will process all the 80,000 account records, and then only it is going to the finish method to check if there is any post processing logic, right? Then it will find, oh, there is another batch apex that has been called for execution. Okay, so then it is going to actually execute this batch class. So if I show you this example quickly, uh, let's just do one thing. Let me create another batch class. Okay, so new apex, something like 222. Okay, and then here I am going to just do the same thing. Okay, 3 methods. The only thing is the logic that I'm going to write is going to be different. Okay, so here, rather than from account, let's say let me take it from contact. So first name from contact. Okay, and then this should be contact, right? Contact, and here let's just make it as, I'm just trying to have two separate batch classes with different kind of logic or processing that they are doing, and then I am going to chain one batch class to the other one. Okay, so list of contact, and here I'm going to take it as contact. Here let's just rename it, and here list of contact, and then here I'm going to update the first name. Okay, so first name. Okay, this list is this now. So this one. All right, perfect. Okay, so in this batch class, what I'm doing, I'm querying all the contacts, no matter how many contacts are there. And I'm updating those contacts in the execute method. Okay, and again, I'm doing the same thing that I did on account name, right? I'm appending this particular text updated by batch hyphen and then contact first name. So all the first names of the contact should be available with this particular string. So now I'm not going to execute this batch sorry, I'm not going to execute this batch directly from here. Okay, I would rather go ahead and write this line in my other batch in the finish method. Okay, here. And what is the class name? Class name is this. Okay, here. and okay. So basically now what I'm trying to say is that if I run this batch, so this batch should run, everything should get completed. And then when it goes to the finish method, it should call another batch for execution. Okay. All right. What's wrong? Okay. No, it has to be the default size. Okay. Hold on. How I have written here. Is there a database.execute batch, new, and then batch class? What's wrong? Method does not exist. Execute batch, execute database dot execute batch. It's right. New and then okay. So all right. So this is we forgot to implement this, right? Implements database dot batchable and as object. That is why it was not recognizing it as a batch. Okay, so this is saved. Now we should be able to save this. Yeah, we can also like it will accept the numbers now. So let's say let's just give it as like 50 or something. Okay. All right. Okay, so let me do two updates now. I'll change something here, okay? ACC update by batch. Okay, why is it doing this? Okay, and hyphen. All right. And then here ACC dot name. Okay. So this time I'm going to update account names with this particular string. Okay. And in my contacts, I'm anyway updating the contact first name with this updated by batch. Okay. So here, let's just save this. All right. So now I don't have to run this batch class, right? Because I have called this batch class from here. Okay. I have done this chaining. Or you can do like, otherwise you can like, call this class into this one and then you can run this one. So once this one is like, has completed execution, it's going to pick up this one. So for now, like, let's just go with this one. So on this one, I am calling the other batch class, the second one. So I'm going to execute this. Okay, I have already written here 2000 and it's fine. So execute. So what should happen? Okay. So it should update all the accounts with this particular string with hyphen. And then also it should update all the contexts first name with this particular strings, right? Because I have called this batch class from this batch class. All right. So let's just go ahead and check. So account should be updated with ACC update by batch. Okay, now it is this one. It should be ACC update by batch. So ACC update by batch. All the accounts got updated, right? Now let's just go ahead and check if the context got updated. So here, yeah, it has. Okay, so all contacts. So if you see the name, right? Name is a combination of first name and second name, right? But so everything like, is like, appended by updated by batch, updated by batch. So that means the second batch also got executed, the one that we had called from the first batch. Okay. So this is how you can do job chaining in batch. I think it's pretty simple. Maybe like, you might get stuck in more complex scenarios, but at least this is the like, syntax that you have to follow. And this is how it works. So, all right. And that's it. So I'll see you guys in the next session. There is one more asynchronous process that is left, which is schedulable Apex, right? So we will see like, how does that work and like, for what purpose do we use schedulable Apex? All right. So keep on practicing. I'll see you in the next session. Bye-bye.